This is Grand Number Ginger, and so this is kind of a random video. I don't know if I'll make any more War Thunder videos talking about vehicles or things of that nature. I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy it. It's just more of if you guys would enjoy me to do it. So please, in the comments, try to, leave some stuff about it. But I'm here to talk about, and while I'm playing, I'll also be playing War Thunder in the Tiger 2, but I'm going to be talking about the Tiger 2. So, I was recently watching a YouTube video where they were talking about the King Tiger and a lot of things about it. It was actually pretty interesting, but it was like robot voice the whole time. So, whatever. Not the point. What really bothered me is that in one of the comments, which, whatever, you can say whatever you want. I'm not judging somebody's commentary, right? It's more so that somebody was like, oh, the King Tiger is the best tank of the war. Now, everybody is entitled to opinions. I'm cool with that. Like, anyone can think whatever they want. But I'm kind of here to pull, almost like Spookinston, I guess, in a way. But I'm kind of here to tell you, to explain my side of it and why I think that's not really true. The King Tiger was definitely a unique and interesting tank, and definitely gave a lot of lessons, I would say, towards what modern tanks would become. But I wouldn't regard it as the best. Was it good at what it did? To some extent, yes. I think it definitely needed so many things to make it even close to great, let alone to make it just good. Now, did it have really good armor? Yes. Was it absolutely unnecessary? Oh god, yes. So, I get it, Germany, Hitler and all them thinking bigger's better, blah 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 blah. No. Honestly, they should have stuck with the 4 inches of armor, and I did talk to somebody in my Discord who's also a huge nerd like I am about this stuff, and we kind of agreed that instead of 5.9 inches of armor, which is absolutely ridiculous, that is so much armor that any allied tank isn't going to hurt you. But at the same token, what in the hell allied tank would you be fighting that would even have a remote chance of penning you? Because at the time, there really wasn't anything. IS-2s weren't like they are in War Thunder, where they're just frickin' everywhere. The IS-2 is a relatively rare tank. There were no SU-100s with the D-10T and things like that floating around, really, for the most part. Okay, you're a dick. And this is miserable. There. Shot traps, just absolute quality. Shoot another grenade. There. So, I wouldn't perhaps say that their armor was stupid in a way. I don't really think it was stupid per se. I think it was kind of a waste for what it was. There was no reason to make this tank a 70-ton behemoth. Make it a 70-ton behemoth when there weren't really that many threats that could take you down. I mean, as you see right now, yes, I am getting penetrated by different rounds. That's fine. I'm at an angle from them. It makes total sense. But, and shit like that. But that's not the point. It's stuff like that. It's like, what were the deadliest things that could have been floating around at that period, right? You gotta think. There were 76mm Shermans. There were the Fireflies, which don't even get me started on how stupid that tank is. There were the T-34-85s, the IS-1s with the 85mm, some IS-2s, but very infrequently. And that was really your big tanks to worry about that could kill a Panther or kill a Tiger. The Pershing didn't come in until the very end of the war, as much as everybody likes to think that the Pershing's oh my god, Americans had heavy tanks. That thing was barely a heavy tank. If you think about, weight and everything else of what constitutes heavy tanks, the thing isn't that heavy. That thing's like an over-glorified medium tank. Not saying I don't like the Pershing, but Pershing is also full of its own crap that's wrong with it and makes it kind of a garbage heap. But there weren't that many threats that could really take out something with as much armor as the Tiger II has. And wasn't also kind of stupid. So to me, it's a little pointless that you would make armor so thick like that. Like, you're not gaining anything out of it. You're just making the vehicle heavier in an absolute maintenance mayhem. Now, you gotta think. So, the Tiger II, right? You're talking a 70-ton tank. The Tiger I, for comparison, is like 45 tons. Now, the Maybach engine that was running the Tiger I and ran the Panther was already struggling to run those two tanks. Hence why they had transmission issues and engine issues and everything else. It was already struggling to handle that immense weight that those tanks put on it. So then you're going to take the same goddamn engine that's already struggling, and you're going to slap it inside of a tank that weighs almost double what the other ones do. No, that's not a recipe for success. That's a recipe for failure. Oh god, that was a bomb. Please, dear God. Oh. You know, it's a recipe for disaster, if anything. Now, I know some people in the comments are probably going to be like, well, the Firefly has Sabo. Yeah, you take Sabo out of the equation, please. The 17-pounder Sabo, A, wasn't that common. It was not a commonly issued round. And the 17-pounder Sabo, on top of it, was only accurate to about 400 meters. Past that, the round just did whatever the hell it wanted. Now, that was fixed for the most part in later Sabos, like 20-pounder guns, things like that. But for the most part, it wasn't that big of a contributing factor. I mean, that is the whole reason the American military basically said, screw off about the hell is that? Is that T-54? Oh, it is. That's, nope. Nope, fuck no. I do not want to tango with you, Mr. DT-100. Fuck off. Even though I'm going to anyways, because I'm stupid, but it's not the point. Yeah, whatever that was, piss off, dude. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I bet you money that he had a heat shell. Oh, well, cap shell. Huh. Already hit me. Ah, turret face. Yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. Anyways, there just wasn't enough 17-pounders with that ammo, the Sabo ammo I'm referring to make that a contributing factor in being able to just smack the crap out of Tigers and Tiger IIs and stuff. There just wasn't. And when the Americans tested the M4, right, to give it the 76mm gun, they did tests alongside of it with Fireflies. Sorry about that. That was... Alright. Apparently I got up-tiered. There wasn't that many... Like, when the Americans tested it, right? The regular ammo in the 17-pounder was just as effective as the 76mm. And then the British argument was, well, we have Sabo. Well, Sabo rounds, like I said, were only accurate to 400 meters. In most tank engagements out in Normandy, things like that, where it's longer ranged, you might not be close enough for 400 meters. And not only that, if you're fighting a Tiger or a Panther or something, you don't want to get that close out in the open where you can long range fight each other, because they're more than likely going to kill you. The Sherman's armor just wasn't effective enough to stop the older 88 and the 75. There's just no effective way to do it. So to the U.S. military, that was kind of like, that's dumb. I don't want that. So I would discount the whole 17-pounder Sabo thing and just kind of throw that out. The 20-pounder gun, yes, I understand the 20-pounder was around in the beginning of, or towards the very, very end of World War II. But the only vehicles that sported that gun at the time was... Oh boy. I'm going to have to look it up now, because now I don't remember what the name of the tank is. When we get out of this match, I'll look for it. But the tank that sported the 20-pounder gun which I don't even think came out till the war was over, actually, had next to no armor. So it would basically be ineffective to fight a Tiger II unless it could ambush it. So that kind of doesn't really matter either. So with what the Allies had at their disposal, penetrating 4 inches of armor at a 50-degree angle, like what a Tiger II's at, for its slope of armor, it would have been fine. You didn't need that whole 5.9 inches of absolute weight-taking up nonsense. Not to mention, the Tiger II couldn't cross a lot of bridges that were in Europe. So, like, yeah, cool, you have this big tank, but good luck getting it over any bridges. It's too heavy. And they also had problems rail carring it and everything else to some extent. So, it doesn't make it really the best tank in any way. Is the gun amazing on these? Yeah, oh my god. The 88, the L71 is a really good gun. The optics were very good. But the engine, the transmission, and the whole suspension system were just an absolute maintenance nightmare. Now, what also didn't help the Tiger II, but also didn't help the Tiger I or the Panther, was that they were rushed into production. There was no... So usually when armies make tanks and things like that, or any military gear for that matter, rifles, whatever it may be, usually what you do is you put the tank out in a field trial. So you do like limited testing and then you do field trials. They didn't do that with any of those tanks. So all these mechanical problems you hear about are solely because they didn't know that that would be a problem. They just threw it out into the field, and then when they found out it was a problem, they were like, oh great, now I have to fix this, and there's no quick way to do it. On another side note, you see over there's the Tiger II-P. I'm kind of like looking at offset. The P does not stand for Porsche. That's kind of a misconception that started a long time ago, but Porsche and Henschel, the two people who made Tiger IIs, had nothing to do with the creation of the turrets. The turrets were made by Krupp. So the P really is standing for like pre-production, basically, or production. Good thing I got shot at because I did not see that. It's kind of like a pre-production turret. So only 50 to 60 of the first Tiger IIs to come out had that pre-production turret. But the German army basically realized very quickly that it was a real pain to make that style of a turret that wasn't like a advantageous thing to make that turret. It was very complicated, having the cupola, the commander's cupola, sit like in that weird like extended curve part out of it was very complicated to make, and it was not really worth the production time it was going to take to manufacture those. So that's why they switched to this turret, which is the updated Krupp turret. Now, some of the other issues with the Tiger II that is big. A Tiger II, I don't remember how much it was in Reichsmarks, but in US dollars in World War II equivalent, it was $330,000 to make one Tiger II, right? Now, well, that was terrifying. Terrifying, but good on you for the sneaky spot you were in. It was that, yeah, price. Yeah, so if I'm wrong about the price, you know, like tell me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I did hear it right when I was watching some like different videos researching this and kind of like getting information, like books I read. But $330,000 is a lot, considering that a Sherman tank, for example, right? That was about $32,000 to make a Sherman. You could almost make 9 to 10 Shermans for the price of one King Tiger. And then, not only that, you could make 2 Tiger 1s for the price of one King Tiger. That's insane. And especially in Germany's case, when they're sitting there fighting this war of being completely outnumbered and outmanufactured. Like, there were 200,000 tanks, basically, in the Allies, versus the Germans who didn't have anywhere near that. And that also brings up the point that, you know, like, Stalin's own quantity is its own quality BS, which I don't agree with in any sort of way, but in this case made absolute sense. There were a lot of Allied tanks. You might have a really good tank with a really good gun and really good armor, whatever, but it's not going to stand up if there's like 16 Allied tanks for each one of your tanks. That's not going to pan out. Like, a Tiger II is not going to win a gunfight. It might win one-on-one, one-on-2Z gunfights with Shermans and stuff like that, but you're not going to win a gunfight if there's 15 Shermans attacking you. You're just not going to be able to reload fast enough or traverse the turret quick enough to handle that many tanks rushing you. So, it kind of made the whole high-quality, air quotations, of the Tiger II and Tiger I and Panther absolutely just useless. Now, Tiger IIs did do fairly well in combat, but didn't really offset it from the amount of Tiger IIs lost in combat from actually getting disabled or destroyed by Allied vehicles or aircraft or infantry, or by the amount that just mechanically failed and broke down, and then the crews destroyed them to not let them get captured. So, yeah, it might have done well at killing, you know, a decent amount of tanks, but when your tank has a massive chance of just completely crapping the bed and blowing its transmission or its engine or blowing the suspension out, kind of makes it a mute point that, like, you have this really cool, badass tank, you know? It's... shoot the grenade. Alright. It kind of makes it a mute point that you have this, like, really, air quotation... Second time in IS-2's absolutely wrecked my shit. That you have this really cool tank, you know? And, okay, I guess I'll just be in an OS1 too, which is a whole nother argument of the tank. So it kind of defeated the purpose that you had, like, this really big super wonder weapon tank, you know? So, I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like the Tiger II is really the best. I would think it's a decent tank, but it definitely had more flaws than more positives in a lot of cases. I think the weight was far too much for what it was. The engine was far too underpowered for what it was. Same with the transmission, the suspension. I think the armor was far too excessive for what it needed at the time. And, you know, it's just too many negatives to positives to make it the best tank of the war. Even though some people think that, which is fine. You have your opinions, I get it. But to me, as someone who... I'm not a historian by any fucking sense of the means, so don't get that going on. But as someone who loves military history and really loves armored vehicles and stuff like that, and, like, is totally obsessed with it, which I do have a very weird interest in them, but it's not really as good as everybody makes it out to be. Now, am I gonna think along the lines of how some people do, that War Thunder should make them realistic to that? No, absolutely not. Oh my god, War Thunder would be miserable. Half the German vehicles would be an absolute nightmare to use. I don't think that far into it, but as far as best tank, no, not really. But I just kind of wanted to get that out there for people on, like, my opinion of it. And if people like these kinds of videos where I talk about tanks and things like that, I'll make more to kind of discuss that and kind of go over it. And, like, if you guys tell me on, like, my Instagram or my Twitter or whatever, and go like, hey, I really think you should do this tank or whatever. Yeah, you know what? Okay. I'm totally up for that. I'm totally up for making videos talking about different tanks and explaining, like, strength and weaknesses on them and stuff. I mean, as you heard me talking about Fireflies and stuff, I could go on a 40-minute rant about why the Firefly is an absolute hunk of garbage compared to a 76mm Sherman. Once again, that is my opinion. I'm not like, what? You know, I'm not some crazy historian or whatever, and I didn't obviously serve on any of these vehicles, but I don't really think they're all that they're cracked up to be. I don't know what that round was that hit me, but that was very painful. Ignore the silly face on my Ostwind. It just shows the pure suffering that I feel playing this thing. Changed my mind, but I enjoy the Duster more. Then again, I can shoot aircraft down with the Duster, and I can't with this, so... Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my opinion. I mean, I don't know, some other stuff that I kind of spaced out on talking about. I have, like, a whole talking point sheet in front of me, but obviously I don't follow it very well. Do I think that it had a cool turret traverse system? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Super cool turret traverse system. Like, man, that thing had some cool stuff to it, but... That was very unexpected, but I'm going to take that as a win. Its turret traverse system had a slow and a fast turret traverse, so you could kind of switch between, like, whether it was quick or it was slow turn, which made it pretty precise, and it was either handled by a handle next to the gunner, or he could use the foot pedals to kind of move it a little more precisely, and that was a heat shell that someone just tried to slap at me. Yeah, screw you, ASU 85. Bueno. 37 millimeters, don't pen that. Oh god, how? Whatever. I don't even want to think about that right now. How stupid that was. But yeah, I mean, obviously I probably have ADHD going on considering how much I jump around about stuff, but the turret traverse was definitely neat, definitely innovative compared to a lot of other tank systems. Granted, it ran off of power on the engine to make it, you know, move more precisely and fast, which I don't think is a good idea, because if your engine goes down, you're just gonna you're screwed. Like, there's nothing you can do to save yourself if you lose engine power, because then your turret, you're gonna have to manually traverse it, or you're only gonna have a limited time the turret's gonna be able to turn quickly. Whereas things like the Sherman, for example, right? Like, Shermans have electronically driven turret traverse, which, even if the engine dies, you still have battery power and things like that. It'll still move at a decent speed. You don't have to hand crank it. Huge advantage. That's beyond the point. Now, another thing I did not talk about that I just thought about, sorry, squirrel is basically the easiest way to describe my mind sometimes, is the engine. So, in War Thunder, for example, right, we have the Tiger 2H SLA-16. Now, the SLA-16 was like a proposed project and never really went anywhere. I think they did end up testing it, but as far as I know, it never really went anywhere. They basically swapped out the gas engine that was in it, the petrol engine in it, and dropped a diesel in it. Now, the diesel created more power, which made the Tiger II actually more maneuverable and more agile, which... That's a lot to say about a 70-ton tank, it being agile in any sort of way. It's a giant metal box, you know? This isn't a Sherman or a T-34 that's gonna, you know, outmaneuver Tigers and be able to fight them and stuff. You know, it's nothing like that. But the diesel engine, which I think it was a regular diesel. I'm like 99% sure it was not a turbo diesel. And that diesel engine, though, kind of fixed that power to weight ratio problem a little bit. Did it make it to where the weight to power ratio was kind of even? No. It still was underpowered. It still had issues. But it would still give you that capability to at least fix some of the problems that this tank was known to have, of engine failures because it's too heavy and things of that nature. Now, another thing, I don't have it in the game, obviously. I don't have the Tiger 10.5 centimeter, right? But, for the love of God, that was not a real tank. That tank was proposed to use the 10.5 with a 105 centimeter or millimeter gun. That never went anywhere. Pretty much right when one of the design teams was like, hey, we should do this to upgun the Tiger, pretty much everybody was like, no, we are not doing that. Like, everybody agreed that was dumb and not a good idea. Because you're making the tank weigh even more than it already does. You're making the crew compartment more uncomfortable and have significantly less room. Because obviously now you have a bigger gun breech, you have bigger rounds, things like that. So you're losing ammo capacity and you're losing space in which the loader has to work with to be able to get rounds into the gun. And just generally making it miserable for the 3 guys stuck in the turret, even more so than it probably already was. A good example of seeing somebody do something, I guess stupid or foolish is probably the better words for it, is the British Firefly. The Firefly's main gun, right, that 17-pounder, if you look at a Firefly, right, right here. So you go and look at a Firefly, right? This is like an original 75mm M4 Sherman turret. Now, they had to cut space in the back, right, to make room for this 17-pounder to fit. And even then, the 17-pounder had to get turned sideways to even get into the turret. And most crews who were on Firefly said it was very uncomfortable and very tight to do anything in and to work in. Hence also why the reload rate is kind of crap in it, because you're in a super tight confined space trying to shove these massive rounds into the main gun. So I can understand why the Germans just be like, no, I'm not putting 105mm inside of the goddamn Tiger. Like, you're just making it 100 times harder for the crew to reload and be comfortable and do their job. So no, I don't exactly want to go and do something like that. Now, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be cool to have like the Tiger 10.5 come back to War Thunder. It would be, just because there's already a lot of really stupid tanks that are in this game that have no business being in here. But they never made any. That never went past the drawing board. That never went past anything because people were like, that's dumb. Why would I do that? The Panther 2 is a whole nother argument of things that I could go on about how that was portrayed wrong in this game as well. Now, I think that's really going to do it for my like rant about all of this with the Tiger. As far as that goes, about how silly the armor is, how underpowered the transmission and the engine were because of them already struggling to move the 40 to 48 ton Panther and Tiger 1, and all the problems that were already associated with that trying to move those tanks. And now you're going to shove it in a tank that weighs almost double the weight. You know, whatever. We already went on a rant about that. And how the suspension was getting absolutely mutilated by just how heavy this tank was. And how transporting it was a huge pain. And how, you know, you can't get across most bridges in Europe. Which makes it kind of a moot point to even have it, because now you're basically building a tank that's good at defending Germany, per se. Maybe a little bit outside of that, if there's a bridge that can handle it. And that's it. Which is dumb, in my opinion. Unless you rail car it to somewhere and drop it off that way. Which even then, is still kind of ridiculous. But also kind of the good things that the tank had. You know, the really excellent KWK-43 L71 gun, and how amazingly accurate and effective that gun was against pretty much any allied target it engaged. And how really good the sights were. The sights were actually extremely good, because most German sights at the time were actually pretty good, and they generally tended to be on the longer range side of it because of how they were trained. And I mean, geez, it's really I guess the armor is kind of a two type thing. Like, yeah, it's cool. It can stop basically any allied gun, aside from like the 122s and the D10s and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's absolutely excessive. You didn't need that much armor. You could have literally stuck with 4 inches of armor angled at the same amount, and it probably would have been, I actually can imagine, it probably would have been exactly as effective against any allied threat that was around at the time. So beefing it up is doing nothing but trying to make this intimidating, big, scary tank, which was the goal of the Germans at the time, I understand that, but was an absolute waste of resources and a waste of how you could have designed things you already had or anything like that to work better than what they were. So, I mean, that's kind of the end of my rant about that in the grand scheme of things. I do hope you guys enjoyed. I do hope everybody generally likes this video. You know, leave comments, things like that. I am not one of those people that I'm going to get offended by your comments being like, oh, you're wrong, you're stupid, whatever. I'm not like that, man. As long as it's like constructive criticism and like, I mean, God, if you even want to have a conversation about it, I'm cool with it, dude. You know, in the comment section or join my Discord, whatever, and you want to have talks about it, I'm cool with that, man. I'm not opposed to that. You know, I always like to hear other people's sides of things and why people think what they think, you know? But, yeah, that's really it, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. Sorry, I am an absolute garbage War Thunder player. I'm not super bad, but I'm not super good either. I'm kind of mediocre, as the term would go for how I am at War Thunder. Also, if you guys saw, I did have like historical sites for it, as you saw on the Tiger and the Panther, even with the historical gun sights. You can look up videos about that. I mean, I could make a video explaining how to do custom sites, but there's plenty of people that do it. For example, like, I'm pretty sure Fly Daily does one. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Spookston did one. I know for a fact that, oh God, what's his name now? I'm totally blanking on this. I should know this, considering how many of his YouTube videos I watch on the regular. But, oh God, I gotta think about this now. I feel like a complete moron. I am just wasting time at this point. Justin Plays. Dear God, why was that hard to remember? Justin Plays is a really good video explaining how to do custom sites and all that stuff. So if you want custom sites, it doesn't really change anything for the game. It's kind of, at least I don't think it changes anything for the game. It's kind of just like if you want historical accuracy for how the sites are. I'm not going to do a video explaining how the German sites work, because that would be pain. I am absolutely garbage at math, and I don't know if I can explain to you guys about how those sites work. If you guys really want me to, and you mention in the comments you want me to, and enough people like it, okay, fine, I'll do it. But don't expect that video to be short by any means, because it's not going to be. Yeah, I mean, that's really it, guys. I do hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.